earlier than that today because we have some conflict. So it's 9:15 on Friday morning, and it's time for another exciting version of Chip Talks. If you guys want, if you guys are following Chip Talks and you want to see basically everything that's been done on Chip Talks, we're building a website, and that is called chiptalkspodcast.com. So if you go to chiptalkspodcast.com, you can see all the previous versions of this show. And we've talked about a lot of stuff. We talk about a lot of cool stuff. You know, we are headed somewhere. You know, I'm not sure where we'll go past that point, but we are sort of leading up to some things, and we need to cover some things in order to do that. This show is a little personal to me. I am a Native American. I am Chickasaw. And as you'll see, as we kind of walk through this presentation, and as I kind of go through this Chip Talks with you and lead you where I want to take you, we'll talk about how horrible, really, reform has been for Indian tribes, Indian population, Native American people. And, you know, my family, my great-great-grandfather was a huge reformer in the Chickasaw Nation. So I feel like I need to right some family wrongs through some of this, and not that he really did anything wrong. He was a great man. He's a very interesting man. His name was Sam Paul. If anybody wants to sort of go out there and check around on what old Sam did, but he did some interesting things. You know, at the time, you know, he appeared to be helpful to the tribe, but as you'll see as we walk through these, I think you'll see that perhaps he wasn't. So here we go. Alrighty. So we're going to talk native herbal medicine. We're going to kind of talk, this went in a little different direction than I intended it to, honestly, as I was putting this together. So I'll just walk you through where it went. And for me, you know, a lot of what I do, I'm a researcher. I mean, I follow science, and so I am trying to take you somewhere. But when I build these type presentations, I don't always know, I know kind of generally what I want to say, but I don't always know kind of the direction it'll take or where it'll go. And I honestly try to be really, really open, you know, to spirit, to God as I'm building these, because I feel like these are important, and, you know, they're important things to tell you guys about. So anyway, this one went a little different direction, so that was kind of interesting and fun. So American Indian influence on the American pharmacopoeia. And what I want you to sort of appreciate about this is how much the American Indians had it going on already. I mean, we're taught, and this is what I was going to start this with, we're taught that American Indians were, you know, primitive, dirty, you know, lived off the land, poor, you know, barely made it, just sort of lived day to day and scraggly existence, right? So that's what we're taught in movies, and we're taught, you know, that's how we've been kind of mind controlled into what the American native really was. That is the furthest thing from the truth, ladies and gentlemen. In my tribe, at least, if you didn't bathe daily, you got like scraped with rattlesnake fangs and things, you know. So it was not as you've been taught. So anyway, the American Indian influence on the American pharmacopoeia. The American pharmacopoeia is the group of drugs that was used for medicine. So what was considered medicine in the 1800s? And so the first U.S. pharmacopoeia, issued in 1820 lists 296 substances of animal, mineral, or vegetable origin in its primary and secondary lists. Of these 130, nearly all of vegetable origin represented drugs used by the American Indians. 130 of the first 296 drugs were already in use for thousands of years by American Indians. About 220 drugs of Native Americans were listed altogether in the U.S. Pharmacopoeia, or the National Formulary, which began in 1888 up to the present time. Although the number of such listings has declined since the advent of synthetic drugs about 1890, wonder who did that, we'll talk about that in a second, It is significant that new substances of American Indian usage have become official since 1890. However, only 30 substances of American Indian origin survived in the 17th revision of the US Pharmacopoeia. I copied this from a PDF. The PDF on the right, the PDF that's down there at the bottom. In the 17th revision of the US Pharmacopoeia in 1965. Okay, so what that's saying is, of the original 130 things that were in the US Pharmacopoeia that were sort of Indian origin, only 30 remained in 1965. These drugs were not always used in the same form by Indians and whites. And so again, in preparation of the drugs, whites have used processes, for instance, distillation, which were not known to the Indians. So white men changed the nature of kind of these plants and natural medicine that American Indians had been using for centuries. All right, so what drugs were these? Well, again, I'm pulling this sort of from this text down there, and so you guys feel free to go find that, ED 138390. You will notice that a lot of these references are .gov, though, which is interesting. So we'll just sort of read this through. So drugs of Native American people. Even cinchona bark and its alkaloid, that should be quinine, long suffered from such prejudice. John U. Lloyd wrote in 1918, in the light of its present supremacy and world-renowned importance, the discredit and odium cast upon it in early records, when its only friends were laymen, charlatans, and semi-professional imperialists, seemed not almost incomprehensible. Before 1820, when the first U.S. Pharmacopoeia appeared, cinchona had overcome the hurdles placed before it. So it was in the first Pharmacopoeia. This is something called quinine. So cinchona bark, the main active, I don't know why it's fluorine, but it should be quinine. So the main active in cinchona bark is quinine. You guys remember HCQ, and you're going to remember this again because Dr. Fauci's getting ready to go to jail. So, but HCQ, you guys remember HCQ? So this is going to come up again as it was for COVID. It's been lots of research on it, very safe, won the, I think, Nobel Prize, when it came out. And it's just a synthetic quinine, okay? But HCQ has high efficacy against COVID, and you'll remember just the absolute, madness to stop you from getting HCQ or learning about HCQ or quinine or cinchona bark during the COVID epidemic. So again, that was a drug that was known to Native Americans for, thousands of years before Europeans showed up and stole it from them. Acknowledging efficacy, though said to be of lesser strength than cinchona, the dogwood bark, used by several tribes and containing properties similar to cinchona, was long used as a substitute for it, as was the bark of yellow poplar and the herb of boneset, all became official drugs. So again, not only did Native Americans have cinchona, they also, which was sort of in South America, but all Native Americans, dogwood is here in the United States. So Native Americans had similar things that would do similar effects that they used in their medicinal practices. This is interesting, and I found this just fascinating. I mean, did Native Americans, did the natives have antibiotics? And it looks like we did. So here's a couple of examples. I don't know what a planter is. I guess a guy, an agricultural guy, but a farmer. We had a planter in Carolina who got an ulcer in his leg. And again, by ulcer, they mean an open wound that's pussing, that's gross, that won't go away, which would trouble him a great many years, okay? At last, he applied himself to one of these Indian conjurers, who was, you can say that word as good as me, Indian, before he used what I'm now going to speak of, which was nothing but the rotten, oated grains of Indian corn beat to a powder and the soft down growing on a turkey's rump. This dried the ulcer up immediately, and no other fontanelle was made to discharge the matter. He remained a healthful man till the time he had the misfortune to be drowned, which was many years later. So basically this, beat up corn that had been left to rot with something like penicillin in it, right? And that's what what would grow, the bacterial growth that would happen in there was used to heal this ulcer. Along similar lines, Franz Boas reported that that tribe drew out boils and swellings by applying to them a soft and slimy fungus called rotten on the ground. Another possible antibiotic treatment was reported among the Chickasaws. Yeah, baby! By John Dar Swanton. Dirt from the top of an old grave was heated and applied to sores in an ailment called burning ghost disease. So all of these are alluding to the fact that, again, Native Americans knew about sort of things getting bacteria and things, developing funguses like they would in order to develop antibiotics, and then using those, which is amazing. All right, how did the pharma start? What was the start of the pharmaceutical industry? Well, again, we'll get to sort of the first drug in the pharma. Pharma started by a company called Bayer, really. So Bayer aspirin, right? And Bayer aspirin really was the start of the pharmaceutical industry. Bayer spent millions and millions of dollars. They had like a whole dog and pony show that they took to Africa, to everywhere, all over the world, promoting Bayer aspirin, right? So they literally built the pharmaceutical industry. At the same time, something called the Flexner Report was tearing down all natural products and anything like the native healing stuff and all that. Well, where did Bayer's first big drug come from? This is interesting. So let's just read through this. Native Americans chewed willow bark, which is where it comes from, to soothe aches and pains. The active ingredient in the bark is saccharine, a chemical that in 1897 formed the basis of discovery of aspirin, the most commonly used drug in the world. Saccharine is also a precursor to salicylic acid. So aspirin now is made from a synthetic, but it all started from the Indian practices of chewing willow bark. The concept that led to the development of vaccines, really? Protecting oneself from a virus or disease, not injecting, from a virus or disease by exposing oneself to a modified version of it was not lost on Native Americans. Dr. Sophie Nooner, a research associate at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, wow, that sounds important, points to tribes inoculating themselves by ingesting small amounts of substances to protect their bodies from the harmful effects of the same substances in larger quantities. They knew about natural immunity. Ever since I started eating small portions of poison oak on a regular basis, I have not gotten the big rashes that I used to get, said Neumeyer, a member of the Kuruk tribe. The world can thank Native Americans, the Iroquois, and the Seneca tribes in particular for inventing baby bottles and baby formula, important to infants' health when breast milk is not available. And according to the History Channel, Native Americans invented syringes. That's not so good. I wish we would have not invented that. You can go back and look at previous chip talks on syringes and the problems there with piercing your dermis hypodermically because you think it's a snake bite or a bee sting and you react accordingly. All right, so Bayer aspirin was their second drug. Their first drug was something that they called their hero drug. And that was the one that they thought would grab everyone. And that was a drug called heroin. Their second drug was aspirin, and literally they used this to take over all natural products in medicine. And the way that they did it was, you might be trying that hemp now for your headache, or that opium for your headache, but it's inconsistent. Opium's addictive, obviously. That was easy to shoot down. But the other stuff, it's inconsistent. You can't dose it. We'll give you this pill, and it works the same every time. Yeah, that'll be a good idea. And literally, they use this, people with money, they use this, Bayer as the model, Bayer, pharmaceuticals as sort of the model, the Flexner Report as the mechanism of action, to change all curriculum, cut out all Indian medicine, all native medicine, and build their pharmaceutical, sort of institution that they built, in the 20s, 30s, 40s, all the way through. Really up till the 50s when they sort of sold you on the idea that you needed sugar over fat. And they still continue to do this crap. All right, so why do we see this? This is interesting. So again, this on the right is a chart of diseases, incidence of diseases among sort of everybody and the Native American people. Okay, so we're going to walk through that real quick. The American Indian Alaskan Native people have long experienced lower health status when compared with other Americans. That's not true. We had better health status before we got westernized. But since we've been westernized, we absolutely have had lower health status. Lower life expectancy and the disproportionate disease burden exists, perhaps because of inadequate education, disproportionate poverty, circumstances in the delivery of health services, and cultural differences. These are broad quality of life issues rooted in economic adversity and poor social conditions. No, again, you westernized us. We got westernized. That's what happened to us. Before, we were just fine. We didn't have any of this stuff, okay? Disease of the heart, malignant neoplasm, that's cancer. Unintentional injuries and diabetes are the leading cause of American Indian, Alaskan Native deaths. And that's still the case today. American Indians and Alaskan Natives born today have a life expectancy that is 5.5 years less than the U.S. all races population. Wow. How far we have fallen. Again, we taught pharma this, and pharma's turned around and weaponized it against us, or westernization, it kind of looks like. Look at the, I think this is really interesting. So look at the incident, and this is sugar. All this is just sugar. It's westernizing our diet, right? And just eating a bunch of sugar, most of this. Heart disease, we have that about 1.1 times greater than the average population. Accidents, unintentional injuries, 2.5 times greater than the normal population or average or whatever we call it. Normal's the wrong word. No one's normal. The rest of the population, let's say. Diabetes, we have that 3.2 times more than the rest of the population. Alcohol-induced disease, gosh, 6.6 times. And that, I would argue, is kind of a cultural thing with us that we need to get past and over. Chronic liver disease, and again, that's probably related to, alcohol, but 4.6 times greater than normal. Influenza, almost 2 times the rate of normal. Again, that just speaks to a weak immune system. Nephritis, kidney disease, again, weak immune system. Sepsis is weak immune. Alzheimer's disease, interestingly, for whatever reason, we get that a lot less than the normal population. Our assaults are high, as you can see. So anyway, but all of this is fixable. This is all, to me, this just screams diet related and behavior related stuff. It screams this, what we're getting ready to go through. So these are and I pulled this from this article that was really good. It's just a good blog. I mean, I would have went right down the same thing, but someone else had already sort of gone there. So I pulled from the blog. But these are 5 practices that have been lost to Native American populations. So first of all, traditional diet, meaning no sugar. We ate a lot of fruits and vegetables. If you're Chickasaw or kind of civilized tribe, then you know about the 3 sisters, which is squash, pole beans, and corn. We've known about that for centuries, and that there were rituals and all kinds of things just associated. There's the stutter, shows up every once in a while. Associated with plantings and harvestings. We also ate a lot of lean meat. So again, if you look at sort of the paleo diet and things like that, that is what we were eating. We didn't have diabetes, all right? We didn't have any diabetes. We didn't die of heart attacks. Somebody died of an arrow wound or, some, animal eating us, but we did not die of diabetes. Okay, what else helped us? Well, we stayed on the move, meaning we exercised. We were moving. We weren't sedentary. We weren't sitting behind a computer or, sitting behind a desk. We had to move. We had to move our bodies. And again, this is something that we can still do. We have to sort of consciously usually do it for most of us, unless you have an active job. But this is absolutely something that all of us could do right now. So again, we need to move, we need to be active, we need to walk, we need to move around. That's part of being a part of life on Earth, right? It's part of participating. We shouldn't be stuck in a cave with a electronic device in front of us. All right, what else? This is a big one: intermittent fasting. I think we probably did this as a practice. I think we just ate a lot less than we do now. Eating is very energetically difficult. It's very costly to your body. The cost is your immune system, honestly. So the more you eat, sort of the weaker your immune system is going to be. And I'm not talking about volume of food. I'm talking about frequency of eating. How many times do you eat a day? The more times you eat a day, honestly, the less healthy you are going to be. And we knew this back in the day. And again, the way that this is sort of framed up in history is, oh, well, food was scarce. Really? It was not. We knew how to grow stuff. We knew how to hunt stuff. We could eat anywhere. We'd eat the bark off trees, because we knew what to do, right? Food wasn't scarce. We lived in abundance. But we also knew how to take care of our bodies, and we knew how to live with nature. And this is part of honoring your vehicle and not gluttonously, shoving stuff in your maw. This is just part of honoring nature and honoring the vehicle you've been given and its role, here on Earth and in nature. So anyway, this was a big part of our practices. Lost, gone, we're going to bring it back. What else was lost? Natural sleeping patterns. Again, now we're a slave to the blue light, aren't we? Instead of that big shiny ball in the sky called the sun, and we in past times we lived by the sun, right? So we wouldn't stay up a long time past dark, and we would wake up with the sun. So we lived more with the sun and more in line again with nature and kind of how the earth works and how the earth vibes. We blew with the wind is the best way to say it, rather than trying to fight the wind, which is what we seem to do all the time now. We had natural integrated wellness, and what I mean by this is everyone was considered part of the whole to natives. If you were part of the tribe, you were part of the tribe. So if you were sick, it was everyone's responsibility. It was your responsibility primarily, but also your family's responsibility and the tribe's responsibility to help you get well. So let's say you, got addicted to snake root or something, whatever. It would be the tribe's responsibility and your family's responsibility to help you through that and help you manage kind of your behavior and, help you with outcomes is the best way to say it. Again, we've lost this culturally, kind of. At least my tribe, my nation is bringing this back. One of the priorities is healthcare and what we do. And tribally, we're focusing on this, but we have to sort of drive this back through and down into our culture again. Okay, so diabetes and fasting. So again, do these ancient practices of intermittent fasting, would they help something that is rampant in American Indian populations right now or any native population right now? Well, yeah. And again, you guys hear me talk about this all the time. After an intermittent fasting diet intervention, patients achieve complete diabetes remission. What? You can solve diabetes? Yes. Again, yes. Defined as an HbA1c, average blood sugar level, of less than 6.5% at least 1 year after stopping diabetes medication, according to a new study published in the Endocrine Society's Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism. This is just from this study, by the way. You can pull it up. Researchers conducted a 3-month intermittent fasting diet intervention among 36 people with diabetes and found almost 90% of the participants, including those who took blood sugar lowering agents and insulin, reduced their diabetes medication intake after intermittent fasting. What? 55% of these people experienced diabetes remission. I thought we were told it couldn't go away. discontinued their diabetes medication and maintained it for at least. This study challenges, you think, the conventional view that diabetes remission can only be achieved in those with shorter diabetes duration, 0 to 6 years. 65% of the study participants who achieved diabetes remission had a diabetes duration of more than 6 years. Yeah. So again, do you think intermittent fasting, just intermittent fasting, would help us natives with diabetes? I do. Diabetes and diet. Another thing we've lost. So if we went back to this lean, a lot of lean meat, fruits and vegetables kind of keto diet, would that help us with diabetes? Let's see what the study says. Study says, in the past couple of decades, evidence from prospective observational studies and clinical trials have converged to support the importance of individual nutrients, foods, and dietary patterns in the prevention and management of type 2 diabetes. The quality of dietary fats and carbohydrates consumed is more crucial than the quantity of these macronutrients. Western processed food is giving you diabetes, is what that says. Diets rich in whole grains, fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, moderate in alcohol consumption, and lower in refined grains, red processed meats, and sugar-sweetened beverages have demonstrated to reduce diabetes risk and improve glycemic control and blood lipids in patients with diabetes. If we just went back to the way we used to eat, we would not get diabetes. Several helpful dietary patterns emphasizing the overall diet quality can be adapted to appropriate personal and cultural food preferences and calorie needs for weight control and diabetes prevention and management. Okay. So again, these are two things that we used to do, intermittent fast and eat right, that we don't do anymore. And again, both of these are correlated with diabetes. Has Westernization helped natives? It took Europeans, disease, guns, and horses, and I'd throw in alcohol in there, less than 300 years to destroy a way of life that has been going on for at least 20,000 years. Although many Native American groups are trying to regain their cultural identity, it will never be the same. It will never be the same, but we remember, and we're going to bring it back, boys and girls. That's the fun thing. Again, all this we can bring back right now. How does it start? It starts by the nation saying yes. It starts by, someone has to start it. Let's say a match has to be lit, and a match has to be lit in the right way. A match has to be lit, with outcomes and measures and measure, old, let's say, practices against Westernization. Let's see what happens. As all things in life, there's balance. So again, with the native population, let's say, we had it figured out. I mean, we have fallen from a high place. We have fallen from an advanced knowledge of how we should live with nature, of how a human should function in nature, and how that relates to our health. So we've fallen pretty far. I mean, our nation is sick, and all Indian nation populations and native populations are sick right now because we've lost our natural ways. So it's time to swing back. It's really time to begin to swing that back and begin to look at what we can do to kind of take back these old natural practices and then also translate them back to people who are looking for solutions, like you guys out there. So can we learn something from, native culture and native medicine? Well, pharma thought that we could, and they literally took it over and sort of are shoving it down your face right now in synthetics. And at the same time, Westernization has wrecked that whole native culture that, brought those things to you. So we need to bring all that back. We need to bring all that back with a vengeance. And again, that's what I think I'm sitting on, knowledge-wise, is this natural system of medicine that exists that really has to do with diet and what you eat, but it also has to do with understanding nature, understanding, when we should sleep, how much we should work, how much exercise we should have, when the frequency of when we should eat, what we should supplement with. So those are all things that we have just lost. And so, I'm trying to bring all that back, and I can, and I want to. I need help, obviously. Can't do it all by myself. But we're going to make it happen, boys and girls. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this Chip Talks. This was a fun one for me because it went in a different direction, and I love talking about my Native heritage and who I am and my family, and it's important to me, and it's important to continue.